Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Naruto Found Peace in the Arms of a Quiet Girl. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
His teammates were right behind him as he ran down the corridor, his heart thumping in his ears as the four shinobi proceeded through the abandoned underground facility. The dimly lit corridor seemed to go on forever. Oh no. He's where? He had a savage thought. Sweat trickled down his face as he kept speeding down the corridor. There was a layer of dust on the floors and the air was hot and stale. He searched for his missing friend, leaving behind him puffs of dust from his feet. There, ahead of him, he could see a hallway branching off to the right. The young Junin skidded a little out of the dust and turned abruptly down the right corridor into a new, even gaunt-looking space. He could feel his anxiety and his anticipation rising within him. He thought his head was going to blow up because his pulse was so fast. Driven by his willpower and adrenaline, he threw on a tremendous acceleration, nearly taking off down the corridor. Naruto. Wait up! He glanced back to see his comrades racing down the corridor, attempting to stay up with them. Who had called out to him was obvious to him. A shinobi with pink hair was attempting to approach him. Haruno Sakura, among his closest and most dependable friends. There were two others behind her. Hinata Hyuga was the most powerful of his friends, and fellow Junin Rock Lee was one of his closest friends. He had come to the realization that he had greatly separated them. Naruto slowed and let his teammates catch up, feeling a little silly but relieved that the bad lighting obscured his face. Sorry, Sakura reminded him, displaying some of her former personality. It's okay, we all want to get to him as fast as possible. Just remember, it'll take all of us to defeat him. He understood her meaning. Sasuke had escaped just before they arrived at the chamber he had been in at the previous facility the last time they had caught up with him. I am sure we will bring him back. As they proceeded down the corridor, Naruto nodded his head in gratitude to Lee. As Naruto led them down the corridor, Hinata's gentle voice reassured him, we will bring Sasuke back. I too am sure of it. Her dark blue hair was flying behind her. When he glanced at her, her face flushed a little. She looks adorable like that. Damn it, he pondered. What the fuck? That's not the time for now, he scolded himself. He ignored his rather unexpected thoughts and concentrated on the task at hand. We have to be successful, whatever the case. Without hesitating, they proceeded down the corridor. He was close. Naruto sensed his presence. He said, Hinata, can you see him? Hinata started her search after activating her Byakugan. A few moments later, she located him. Got it. 30 meters, second door on the right. He said, everyone, get ready. Hi. Running down the corridor, the Leaf Shinobi skidded to a halt outside a weathered door as they readied themselves for the impending conflict. The four Junin remained silent without thinking. Naruto grabbed the doorknob and turned, revealing a brightly lit room. A harsh voice said, Naruto, so, you here to kill me? The voice came from a creature seated with its head bent in the middle of the room. Half a foot from the lone figure was a sword. No, our orders are to bring you back, Naruto? The figure's head rose. The dilapidated-looking man stared at the four nin in the room with half-open, bleary eyes. Sakura, Lee, even Hinata. Sakura gave Naruto a sharp intake of breath. For good reason. Sasuke was a complete mess. His hair was longer than it had ever been, and his clothes were ripped. He also appeared ill. This had been a concern for them. So you must have made Junin by now one step closer to becoming Hokage, Naruto? When Naruto noticed a flash of red, he gave his team a late warning. Don't look into his eyes. Look at his feet like Gai-sensei and Kakashi-sensei taught us. Wa? Sasuke's genjutsu struck Lee and Sakura with full force just after he had finished warning them. It only affected Naruto and Hinata. He gave Naruto a sly smile and said, I see you remembered. Pulling out his sword, Sasuke rose. He stowed the exquisitely crafted blade and then glared at the two shinobi in front of him who were prepared for battle. Yes, I did. We didn't come to fight you, but if you force us to, we will. With his kunai drawn, Naruto assumed a fighting stance. Hinata moved to cover Naruto behind him as well, getting ready for the impending battle. I too did not come for a fight. I merely want to tell you to leave me alone. If you continue hunting me, I will kill you. As he practically spat out the words, Sasuke's voice was filled with rage and hatred, and he continued to glare angrily at Naruto. Naruto took a risk. Then release your genjutsu and we'll talk on the way back to the village. No, you don't understand why I'm doing this, he begged. Then make me understand. Sheathing his sword, Sasuke said, alright, I'll tell you. You idiot. He kept it at his side. His face was etched with anger. His former teammate's face was covered in pure hatred. When I last encountered my dear brother, I asked him who had helped him massacre my clan. Sasuke stopped and relished the rush of adrenaline coursing through his body. He gave me the name of the other murderer, With their eyes fixed on the young Uchiha, the four-leaf shinobi stood motionless, not daring to move an inch. Angry, he spat out, "Madara Uchiha." Their reaction to this outburst was far worse than their shock at Sasuke's appearance. "Sasuke, that's impossible. Madara Uchiha fought the first Hokage 100 years ago. He can't still be alive." With his sword still hanging loosely, Sasuke grinned and said, "Idiot, you don't know anything, do you?" Madara unlocked the final secret of the Sharingan. It granted him some form of immortality. He started by saying, "I don't know why he did it, but he helped Itachi murder my clan. For that, he will die." Naruto was hearing things that he couldn't believe. The man he considered a brother, Sasuke, had gone insane. Naruto experienced a sudden numbness throughout his body. He was immobile. "Now, Naruto, I didn't plan on killing you, but you've been a pain for too long." With his eyes glowing red over the expertly crafted blade, Sasuke raised his blade. Sasuke said a single word. "Die." The word was barely audible. Sasuke jumped out of his position, sword outstretched, determined to kill his old friend faster than Naruto had ever seen. Naruto was immobile when his eyes had met Sasuke's. He had been struck by a paralyzing genjutsu. He had made a mistake. What was it that was going to kill him? Kindness? Pity? That would be his final error. Whatever it was, despite all of the training he had received from Pervy Sage and Kakashi Sensei, he would still die due to an error. As Sasuke approached, time seemed to slow down. It seemed like 300 miles even though it was only 3 meters. Naruto saw the blade get closer and closer in painfully slow movements. An unexpected burst of dark blue hair, the steel's flash, a sharp intake of breath, a sickening thud, the blood spatter. Naruto experienced a million pieces of his world breaking apart. With the lethally blade sticking out of her lower back, Hinata stood tall in front of him. Hinata gave Sasuke a glare that was filled with hatred and murderous intent. "If you try to harm my Naruto-kun, I will kill you." Is she Naruto-kun? What on earth? Naruto remembered how shocked he was by what she said. Sasuke growled and yanked his blade back, splattering blood everywhere. "Foolish girl." Hinata briefly swayed in place before falling to the ground together. They fell to the ground after Naruto caught her mid-fall. Tears filled Naruto's eyes, and he held Hinata close. They were tearing his heart out of his chest. The idea that Hinata might pass away in his arms here hurt him deeply. He was suddenly filled with hatred and rage. He heard a familiar mocking voice in his head. "Brat, hurry up, allow me to assist you." No, Naruto gave a firm response. "If you refuse my assistance, you won't be able to get revenge for the death of your adorable little friend." "No, I nearly killed the people I was attempting to protect the last time you helped." He retaliated angrily. "I'll use my own strength to defeat him." "Alright, I refuse to assist, but just keep in mind, whether you like it or not, I'm here to help. If you start losing too much, I don't intend to die anytime soon." Naruto gave the fox a smile. Despite the demon's lack of interest in him, he had truly come to like it. "Thank you." However, Sasuke left his erstwhile allies behind and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. With tears running down his cheeks, Naruto yelled, "Sasuke! You bastard!" at the top of his lungs. "Naruto! Hinata! No!" Sakura hurried to her two companions and started examining the young lady's injury. She was sure she could heal her, but it was bad. "Naruto!" It was hardly more than a whisper. She looked down at Naruto's face. Her mouth was slightly smiling, and her lovely lavender eyes were half open. Tears still streaming down his face, Naruto forced himself to smile silly at Hinata. "Hey, save your energy and instead of wasting it on me, Hina-chan." He whispered his response as well. Sakura was able to seal the wound and get rid of the poison that Hinata had applied to the blade, but she was heavily blood-stained. But Hinata's heart began to race. "He referred to me as Hina-chan. He cares." As she gazed into Naruto's tear-streaked, cerulean eyes, her face began to heat up. Every week, with some color returning to her face, she asked, "Naruto-kun, you called me Hina-chan, why?" A blush began to appear on Naruto's face as he felt his hand slide up to the back of his head, making his silly grin even more ridiculous. "God, I'm hopeless." "Well, ya see, I kinda." He chastised himself in his head for his sudden shyness. "Child, you just figured that out?" With a hint of amusement, the fox asked him. "Go to hell. You filthy old fox, who asked you anyway?" He shot back angrily. The fox laughed as Naruto kept making mistakes. When Hinata whispered, "I'm sorry," Hinata gave him a smile while her eyes were a little hazy. Unaware that he was caressing her hair, he asked softly, "For what?" Sakura kept Hinata's recovery a secret from them. She watched the two too much. Ah, how adorable, she pondered. She felt some strength return as she uttered the words, "For not being braver and stronger." Hey, you just saved my life that took both Street and guts. You were brave and you were strong. He gave Hinata a smile. Sakura saw a genuine smile instead of one of his fake ones. Hinata only managed to say, "Naruto-kun," before fainting. Fear and shock flashed across Naruto's face as he turned to Sakura in alarm. Sakura gave him a smile. "She'll be fine, we still need to get her back to the village." With a nod of approval, Naruto picked up Hinata in bridal fashion and gave the order for his team to return home. Naruto couldn't stop grinning at the beauty he was holding throughout the journey. Maybe he'd ask her out when they returned after all. Her gentle smile and snuggling against his chest made her look incredibly adorable. When Hinata woke up, she refused to open her eyes. Sasuke had been a part of her strange dreams. He had attempted her murder. Was that some sort of dream? She was suddenly aware that she was nestled against someone's chest, seemingly being carried by the soft yet powerful arms. Her shyness and embarrassment overcame her, and she dared not speak. "Hang in there, Hina-chan, almost home." It was unbelievable to her, that voice. She opened her eyes slightly and looked up, almost fainting from what she saw. "Naruto-kun. I'm being carried by him. The chest I was. Thina, OMG, why? Why? Please, God, don't let him think poorly of me. Please allow him to dismiss it." Hinata's face had turned scarlet instead of pink because she was so embarrassed despite her inability to control her unconscious desires. Her eyes had widened in fear at what Naruto likely believed to be her being rather intimate with him. She looked into Naruto's kind, smiling face, and her face, if it could, turned even redder. As the trees whirled past, he said brightly, "Hey Sleeping Beauty, you're up." Her face was displaying utter shock as she mouthed the words, "Sleeping Beauty." Then, she did what she did best as she passed out. Naruto and the others arrived at the Hidden Leaf Village after a few more minutes of travel. Fortunately, Tsunade was on her rounds when Naruto and the others hurried Hinata to the hospital. Naturally, one did not want to see four Junin in the early hours of the morning, one of them carrying the other, but covered in blood. "Granny Tsunade, come quick. Hinata has been hurt." Naturally, once more, Naruto had failed to treat her with any dignity. Naturally, he didn't give a damn and was the loudest person in the hospital. His foolishness earned him a good slap on the side of the head. He yelled angrily, "What the hell was that for?" while still clutching a half-conscious and somewhat flushed Hinata in bridal fashion. She hissed, cracking her knuckles, and said, menacingly, "For being a baka. What have I told you about calling me Granny? And what have I told you about hospitals and your loud mouth?" The blonde, who was 19, was not listening as she watched Naruto gaze down at the woman in his arms, embarrassed that his rather annoying shouting had woken her. Tsunade's face softened into a tiny smile. He cares a lot, she thought. When Hinata opened her eyes, she saw Naruto still in his arms, his face covering hers. He appeared remorseful and ashamed. "That is not something he could have done, not while I'm unconscious. Not that I would mind. Really, such thoughts about my comrade must be avoided." A rather X-rated thought flashed through her mind, and her face turned red. "Naruto-kun. Where are we?" she said, a little stuttering. "We're in Konoha Hospital. You got wounded by that bastard. Sakura stabilized you, and I carried you all the way here myself," he said with a smile. He kept his enjoyment of her cuddling against his chest a secret from her. "Naruto," said Tsunade, "I'll take her to the nearest room and examine her. You three will wait outside." Naruto stopped the fifth Hokage before she could reach for the young girl. "I'll carry her, just show me where the room is." As she led the way down the hallway to an empty room close to the opposite side of the hospital, Tsunade grinned. "You've changed." Naruto outside of Hinata's room. Naruto was pacing around. Even though it had only been 15 minutes, he felt like it had been much longer. He simply needed to know if Hinata would be alright. Tsunade left the room with a small smile, as though she could read his mind. "Gran." Naruto never completed his sentence because he was thrown 4 meters away by a superhuman punch that sent him spinning down the hallway. He rubbed the side of his face and yelled, "What the hell was that for, you miserable old bat?" "If you want to live," she yelled, "you'll stop shouting, and I am not a miserable old bat, baka." Tsunade walked down the hall to them, whispering, "Sorry," as she glared at her self-proclaimed little brother as he muttered something incomprehensible. "Now, since the baka had some sense beat into him, I'd like to see." He thrust the papers into her hand and said, Yeah, we know, our mission reports here." He exclaimed impatiently, "Now, tell me, tell us how Hina-chan is." Tsunade asked slyly, My, Naruto, since when did you start calling her Hina-chan?" Naruto mumbled something about, "since today," and turned red as a tomato. She said, "Never mind, Naruto Hina-chan," while Sakura laughed as Lee watched, amused. Naruto's blush turned even more red. We'll be fine, we're keeping her here overnight so she can rest also. The Hyugas are all out on missions this way, she has a place to stay till they return tomorrow. Naruto sighed with relief, and she grinned. He was still flushed when he asked, can we see her? Still acting like a 12-year-old boy at the age of 19, Tsunade pondered. Be good, Naruto, have fun with Hina-chan. Tsunade couldn't resist making fun of her younger brother's new crush, saying, she's asleep now, I guess it's okay as long as you're quiet. As Tsunade saw Naruto turn red and start to splutter, she grinned malevolently. He wouldn't yell at her. She knew a door opened, and then she heard footsteps as she rounded the corner. The last sound she heard was a door gently closing. Thus the Baka fell in love with someone. It was about time he grew up. Naruto was dozing off by this point. It was well past midnight. Naruto had to plead for permission to remain. He was now awakened from his deep slumber. The warmth and softness of his pillow baffled him, or the reason behind the little gasp of surprise he had heard with a flushed face. Naruto sat bolt upright after opening his eyes. Now he understood why his pillow had been so comfortable. His head was resting on Hinata's thigh when he fell asleep. Hinata smiled a little, her cheeks turning red. Naruto smiled shamefully when he realized they had been holding hands. He tried to bring his hand to the back of his head. The embarrassed teenagers continued to hold hands while grinning sheepishly and looking into each other's eyes. He smiled foolishly and whispered, Hina-chan. Naru-kun. She grinned and flushed. It was now or never. Naruto concluded it was time to ask her now. He hoped she would say yes. Still staring into her beautiful eyes, he said, Hina-chan, I was wondering if you'd like to hang out? Like a date? He finished, losing himself entirely in her stunning features. She was ashamed of herself for stuttering. Date? Naruto thought it was cute as her long dark blue hair fell over her smooth face. Her face blazed a bright scarlet. His voice trailed off, if you don't want to, as his fear of rejection grew stronger by the moment. Oh no, he pondered, I'll appear to be the complete baka that Granny Tsunade claims I am if she says no. Calm down, whelp, you can see she's interested in you, but I'm not sure why anyone would date a fool like you. You fox. Damn you to hell, right now. I don't need your intrusions. Hold on, did you mention that she likes me? That's what I think I said. As usual, the uptake is slow. Leave if you have no advice. Do something like go lick yourself in the corner. You're very good, little. Here's my advice. If you want it, it's clear that she finds you attractive. She is a fully grown woman of your kind who is prepared to have children. What on earth? That isn't helpful. Quit talking and pay attention. My recommendation is to find a life partner and mate. Oh no. Still, it didn't help. Who are you? You have the voice of pervy sage. Hey, I gave you some advice when you asked for it. Try it yourself if you don't like it. You only instructed me to do her. Ignore it, I'll take care of this myself, my ass, wise demon king. What a brat you are. Still flushed, Naruto kept staring at her, still twitching. When he's all worked up, he looks adorable, she pondered. Yes, she exhaled, blushing passionately, I'd love to go on a date with you. After that, Naruto was unable to hide the foolish smile from his face. Positively beaming, Naruto and Hinata had decided on a date, and the 1-week wait would end in precisely 2 minutes. Naturally, the wait was not easy, and when he left the hospital the following morning, he hurried over to Iruka-sensei's for advice on how to arrange the date. What he hadn't anticipated, though, was seeing 7 other people there. Flashback: Naruto was in a panic. He and Hinata had decided to go out on Friday of next week, and he assured her that he would arrange the date on his own and that it would be ideal. However, horror struck when he realized that he had no idea what a date should be like and that he needed help, but from whom? Not Sakura, who would laugh uncontrollably, not Kakashi-sensei, who would only suggest a bunch of perverted things. Neither would be able to help. Iruka-sensei can assist me, that's all. After thinking that, Naruto sprinted as quickly as he could to the home of his favorite fatherly sensei. Iruka-sensei, I need your assistance. I need help with my date, please get out. Upon knocking on his door, Naruto was pleased to see an astonished Iruka peering through the gap between the doors. Oh Naruto, come in, please, I'd be happy to assist. Naruto entered after Iruka opened the door. Iruka-sensei, thank you, I need to arrange the ideal date for a... Naruto froze as he finally looked around, realizing that Iruka-sensei had not been alone after all, and that Sakura, Kakashi-sensei, Pervy Sage, Gai-sensei, Kurenai-sensei, Shizune-san, and Granny Tsunade were all seated in the front room. All of them, including Kakashi, were laughing at the young Junin. A date? Who is the unfortunate girl? Jiraiya grinned. I'll tell you the hell. Sage is a pervert. Naruto pointed a finger accusingly at the Sannin. What were you saying? Jiraiya posed a challenge. Hey, it's the Hyuga girl. In case you were wondering, I think her name is Hinata Naruto. Am I correct? Kakashi asked nonchalantly as he continued to read his book. Screw him. Instead of responding, Naruto simply blushed. Oh, yes, exactly, Naruto. How is Hina-chan doing? Tsunade smiled and asked. Hina-chan? Before they started laughing, Iruka, Kakashi, Guy, and Jiraiya all said the same thing. You four, stop talking. I came to get assistance, not disparaging remarks, he let out a roar. Shizune, Kurenai, and Sakura practically grinned at Naruto as they exclaimed, "Oh, Naruto." Oh no, they agreed to help after a few minutes of questioning. In fact, only Sakura, Iruka, Kurenai, and Shizune could be of any use. Jiraiya and Kakashi only offered perverted suggestions. Guy continued to ramble on about youth, and Tsunade was too amused by it to provide anything substantial. After an hour, he came up with a plan. They would go to one of the best restaurants in town for dinner, then take a stroll in the park, and finally, they would sit atop the Hokage heads and gaze at the stars. He hoped that this plan would be fairly well-rounded. Final flashback: as he approached the Hyuga Manor, Naruto kept grinning foolishly, hoping that his dark blue dress shirt and black pants would not make him look too bad. He had rolled up his sleeves like Kakashi-sensei, omitted a tie, and left the top few buttons undone. Revealing his black t-shirt underneath, he approached the gate, but was stopped by two Hyuga guards. Identify yourself. Of the two, the taller one was ordered. Naruto Uzumaki, what are you doing here? A quiet voice behind the two men interrupted him before he could respond. He's my date. All three of them turned to see who it was, and Naruto's mouth fell open as a huge flush spread across his face. Hinata looked stunning, wearing a strapless, cerulean dress that fell just above her knees, highlighting her curvy figure even more. Her skin glowed, and she wore matching heels. It took all of his self-control not to look at her chest, but at her face instead, and he saw passion and warmth behind her lavender eyes. She smiled and flushed when he did. How are you, Naruto-kun? Hinata giggled, enjoying the attention he was giving her, and she approached him, putting her arm around his waist. Naruto was unable to respond, only nodding. Naruto-kun, are you prepared? Playfully, she whispered. Yeah, as she gave a little giggle. Hinata put her head on his shoulder, closed her eyes, and allowed him to take her to their first destination. Let's go, he stammered, putting his arm around her shoulders and drawing her close. This evening will be unforgettable, she thought. Naruto was pleased with the success of the date. They had dinner together, and in order to make her laugh, he cracked a few jokes and shared some stories about Jiraiya and Tsunade. They then chatted for a while, learning about each other's interests and other things. Naruto had discovered a lot about his date, including her mother. Following dinner, the two shinobi strolled through the park, enjoying each other's company without conversing throughout the date. They continued to stare at one another before blushing and turning their heads away. Hinata thought, I wonder why he does it. He can't be nervous, can he? As if on cue, she noticed that he was staring at her. He blushed red at the sight of her gaze and turned his head to his left, away from her eyes. Still smiling foolishly, Hinata grinned at this newfound weakness, thinking that perhaps she would take advantage of it. After all, wasn't he supposed to be weak? Perhaps she would have some fun. He looked at her, a little perplexed, but she thought, just a little bit, as she giggled. Naruto-kun, may we take a short break? She whispered in his ear. Her sweet breath blew against his neck, sending shivers down his spine. How could he refuse? So, he sat down on a bench far from onlookers, secluded for private affairs. Leaning against his chest, Hinata inhaled his scent, felt his chest rise and fall, and heard his heartbeat. She smiled as she touched his hand and heard the heartbeat quicken. Tonight, she would receive her kiss. Both Hinata and Naruto blushed and grinned as they gazed down at each other's faces. Then he said, Hina-chan. Yes, Naru-kun. She responded seductively, relishing the response it evoked. Do you mind if I give you a kiss? Hinata gave him a smile, her eyes gleaming with passion. No, I wouldn't mind, she smiled in response. Good. Naruto put his left hand on her cheek, but she didn't move. Instead, she turned pinker as he moved closer. Their lips met, and all of her worries vanished. A moment of love that lasted forever passed, and after a few seconds, they broke apart, both of them feeling a little flushed. Naruto opened his eyes and grinned, still holding her cheek, and he was still closer, no more than a half-inch, but Hinata wanted more. She reached up, brought his mouth to his, and gave the man of her dreams a quick kiss. After a slight shock, Naruto put his arms around her and drew her closer, relishing the kiss as much as it was. A notebook was lying nearby, and a certain perverted hermit was using a telescope to observe the young couple from a distance. He, Unfortunately, he hadn't heard footsteps coming up behind him, so he giggled like a schoolgirl. Jiraiya. The voice was tinged with anger. Jiraiya froze at the sound of the voice, a fear unlike anything he had ever experienced. God damn it, the old pervert was knocked out when Tsunade grabbed him by the collar and threw him through a nearby wall. That was the last thing he thought. An old fool. After their first date ended, Naruto was eager for another one and was a little sad that it had to end, but they had decided to spend tomorrow together. Naruto walked Hinata home without saying a word, content to walk in silence with the love of his life by his side. When they arrived at the compound, he disappointedly took his arm off of her. They held hands as he walked her to her front door, where they stood, silently grinning at one another. Hinata was the first to speak. Many thanks, Naru-kun. I haven't placed a wager in a long time until tonight. Naruto rubbed the back of his head and smiled foolishly. Oh, it didn't matter. Hinata's lips pressed tightly against Naruto's, interrupting him when they parted ways. Naruto appeared somewhat inebriated, his eyes distracted. Naruto stood motionless for a few seconds as Hinata turned and went inside, grinning at him as the door closed. Good night, Naru-kun. Arrive? He concluded then, as he turned and left his girl behind, a smile that he couldn't shake spread from ear to ear. You did a good job, brat. Yes, I finally have the woman of my dreams, did I not? Remember that she loves you for who you are, regardless of my presence. I'm proud of you, Kit. Kit, are you okay? Are you proud of me? Well, I've only come to see you as a member of my own litter. Naruto's smile widened even more as he went back the way he and Hinata had come. Happier than ever, Hinata flushed from what she had done and pressed her back against the door. She thought merrily, I discovered his weakness. I discovered the weakness of the toughest, strongest ninja. And she would carry that secret into eternity. She was too preoccupied with Naruto to notice her father sitting in the room. Hinata. Hinata didn't flinch or turn away as the voice broke her thoughts, and she spun to face her father, who was glaring at his oldest daughter in a fit of rage. Not now, she reasoned. Yes, Dad. Where have you been? Her response was cheerful. I was on a date, coldly, he said, with the demon boy. She was more shocked by that statement than anything else. How could he have been so mean? Papa, how are you able to say that? Naruto-kun has repeatedly shown that he is not the demon that is encased within him. He transformed Neji, as you witnessed. He's an excellent shinobi, no demon. She was on the verge of tears. I'll be honest. He's not a monster. However, I won't let my daughter date a monster who cares. Your friendship with the boy is fine with me. However, you and he are no longer to have a romantic relationship. I prohibit it. Tears were streaming down Hinata's face as she stood by the door, but she wiped them away and gave her father a fierce look. No, I'm 19. I'll see who I desire. Father, you no longer have authority over my life. Hiyashi was furious at her disobedience, and without hesitation, he hurled himself across the room and gave Hinata a backhand, flinging her into the door as tears filled her eyes. Father, leave. Don't ever return to my house again. Our clan no longer includes you. Go spend time with the monster you adore. Without second-guessing his actions, Hiyashi turned his back on her, breathing heavily as his daughter got up and yanked the door open, fleeing the compound. Half blinded by tears, Hinata ran through the village, not knowing where she was going. As long as she had left that man far away, she failed to see a log on the ground in front of her, and after her foot struck it and she fell, she just lay on the cold ground and sobbed. A lone figure was lying on the ground, sobbing, and Naruto was humming joyfully as he made his way home through the park when he heard a sound that made him stop and look around. He thought, oh, poor girl, she must have been attacked, as he walked up to her, bending to help her up when he saw who it was. Hinata. What took place? With a handprint on the right side of her face, Hinata looked up at him, crying, and as soon as she recognized him, she threw herself into his arms and sobbed into his shirt. Naru-kun. She cried, Hina-chan, I'm here. After a few moments, she told him what had happened after he had dropped her off, and he became furious at what Hiyashi had done to her. Tell me what happened, he said, kissing her forehead to calm her down. Hina-chan, you are aware of my residence, correct? The girl in his arms nodded, no longer crying but still upset. All right, wait for me over there. Where? Naruto-kun. No, he will murder you. She saw with wide eyes that he was getting ready to fight her father. I must go to Hinata. He tried to get up, but Hinata held on to him. No one gets away with harming my girlfriend, he said. Naruto-kun, no, simply remain with me, please, she said, her fear visible in her eyes. Sadly, he thought, damn those eyes. All right, Hinata, let's go home. Arms encircling one another, the two of them walked down the street together. Naruto disappeared into the next room, searching for something Hinata could wear, and returned with a big orange shirt and a pair of boxers, surprising Hinata with how clean his apartment was. Sorry, he handed her the clothes and apologized. The two stooped in the center of the room and said, "It's okay." Naruto? Yes. Did he ask? She flushed and said, I need to get dressed? Oh. He turned around, blushing, and said sheepishly, sorry. Naruto had gotten the hint. Naruto was debating whether or not to peek. I could always claim that I believed she had finished dressing. A small one wouldn't hurt. No, I mustn't. It would be low to peek at her. She's been through enough. Kid, are you arguing with yourself? Crude, huh? I suppose you know? Yes, you should not peek, and I agree with you. Thank you. You just told me to exercise self-control. Whoa. Sigh, get a sleep, kid. Don't get used to it. Yes, I do hear. Yay. When Hinata pulled Naruto back in, he felt two arms wrap around his waist and give him a back hug. She muttered, thank you, Naru-kun. Don't just ignore it. He turned to her and saw her almost crying. I love you and want you here. The orange short-sleeve shirt hung down to her waist, but it was a little tight around the breast. Do you love me? With tears in her voice, she inquired. With a smile, Naruto drew her near. He smiled and said, with all my heart. Hinata pressed her head against his chest and remained there for what seemed like an eternity before he brooded away. The bed is yours. I'll crash on the floor because I have a sleeping bag. Okay. The two ninja climbed into their beds and fell asleep as soon as their heads struck the pillow. When Naruto awoke the following morning, he was entangled with Hinata, who had apparently lain down on the floor with him at some point during the night. He grinned as she clung to him, resting her head on his chest. Bliss, he thought, perfect bliss. Hinata opened her eyes and smiled at Naruto as he watched, and as Naruto smiled back, the blushing Hinata started to back away. Oh, no, you don't. He pulled her close to him and said, you're here till I'm ready to get up. They remained that way for a few minutes before Naruto's door suddenly flew open, letting 8 people into the house. Jiraiya, Iruka, Tsunade, Shizune, Kurenai, Kakashi, Sakura, and Guy. Naruto. You're a lazy jerk. The room fell silent awkwardly as the young couple, still holding hands, turned to face the 8 shinobi by the door. You were... Sakura stopped in her tracks, and so did everyone else. Jiraiya shouted, we taught him well, and held up his hand to Kakashi, both of them high-fiving. Iruka and Shizune looked too stunned to say anything. Kurenai looked ready to kill. Guy jumped around shouting something about youthful love, and Sakura and Tsunade both yelled, Naruto. What did you do? The 8 shinobi listened in stunned silence as they told their story, and Tsunade stood up after they had done so and after hundreds of assurances that nothing had happened. I suppose you'd better remain here, Hinata, with Naruto here. I hope you're safe. She tapped her chin thoughtfully, scratched that. I'd better go down to the office and get you 2 off missions for a while, Naruto. Yes? I'm assigning you a mission with AS ranking until this mess with Hiashi is resolved. You will keep Hinata safe. I'm not sure how long, but until then, be near her constantly. Yes, Gran. I mean, Tsunade-sama. She grinned at him and said, good, come, let's leave these 2 alone. After 5 minutes in Naruto's arms, Hinata felt more secure than ever at the Hyuga compound, knowing that her #1 most unpredictable knuckle-headed ninja would keep her safe. After Hinata moved in with him 6 months ago, Naruto was happier than he could have ever dreamed. He woke up every day to a beautiful woman he loved and could spend hours on end with, and he was always by his side no matter where she went. However, there had been a significant change in the last few months. First, Hiashi came over to deliver Hinata's belongings to Naruto's house, and the Hyuga leader stood rigidly the entire time. After a rather tense silence, Hiashi called Hinata a monster's whore. If Hinata and Kakashi hadn't intervened, Hiashi Hyuga would have died. After Naruto finished, he started to head to the sink to do the dishes again, but Hinata stopped him. Naruto and Hinata were enjoying another meal she had prepared today, and he had, of course, complimented her on her cooking multiple times. They ate in happy silence, simply smiling at each other and blushing as they silently showed each other their love. No, Naru-kun, not tonight. I'll look after them. You may now take a nap. Hinata interrupted Naruto's protests with a kiss, and the young man instantly fell silent and left the room with a foolish smile. Hey Hinata. Hinata would have screamed uncontrollably if she hadn't been accustomed to the man staring through the window of the kitchen sink. Oh, Jiraiya-sama, why have you come here? She inquired. To assist the 2 of you. You have yet to complete it, have you? Mischievously, he inquired. Red in the face, Hinata showed unusual interest in the dish she was holding. That will serve as confirmation for me. I'm here to help. As I mentioned, add this to the Moran's drink tonight, he said, taking a black pouch without a label out of his pocket and passing it to Hinata through the open window. It will become unsightly if you don't have any to have faith in me. After Hinata took the bag, Jiraiya left. Hinata stared at the black pouch, unsure whether to believe the old Sannin, but she reasoned that there was no harm in following his advice because, according to Naruto, everything he did with women always ended in failure. Nevertheless, she chose to be safe and put it in the cabinet, behind the pots. After finishing the dishes, Hinata informed Naruto that she was taking a shower. He kissed her and went into the kitchen to find something to drink. While in the shower, Hinata heard pots and pans being moved, but he ignored it. Unfortunately, Naruto was searching for sugar for the lemonade he had prepared earlier. When he discovered the odd bag, he was pleased to see the sweet powder inside and proceeded to the pitcher, emptying the entire bag into the icy yellow liquid. Before Naruto tested the sweetness of the lemonade, Hinata had dried off and dressed, choosing to wear only her tank top and mesh shirt instead of her hoodie. She blushed as she imagined Naruto's face, and despite their 3 months of dating and living together, she had limited the amount of skin she would show. After their first date, entering the front room, she discovered Naruto in the tiny kitchen, making 2 glasses of lemonade. "Naru-kun, if you had asked, I would have gotten you a drink." When he stopped, Naruto turned to give her a smile, but his brain froze at the sight of her. She was standing in the front room, wearing only shorts, a mesh shirt, and a tank top, which accentuated her curved body, and she looked like a goddess, a very hot and sexy goddess. Hinata giggled at him as she watched his reaction, and Naruto felt his face flush and his nose bleed. She smiled at him, thinking, something more for me to use against him. Naruto, feeling like the luckiest person alive, walked over with 2 glasses and sat down next to her after recovering from his initial shock. As she and Naruto drained their glasses, Hinata felt a strange sensation. Her body felt more sensitive than ever. In fact, her other senses were much more sensitive than she could recall. She looked at Naruto as he did, and he saw a hunger. It was a hunger unlike any he had ever experienced, and it was for the girl next to him. He looked at her and saw the same hunger in her eyes, aimed at him. Before he could stop it, Hinata lunged at him, knocking him on his back, and started kissing every inch of her body. Exposed or not, Naruto would have stopped, but it felt too good. He put his arms around her and started kissing every inch of her, exposed or not, and she let out a little in pleasure. As they started to undress, he thought, this is going to be good. With only a sheet covering her nude body, Hinata lay beside Naruto, watching him breathe slowly and obviously asleep. She smiled as she slowly sat up, holding the blanket in place with one arm. She had never experienced anything like this before. The intimate act had heightened her senses to an unimaginable level. Now, she sat, trying to figure out what had made her lose control and try to ravage Naruto. She shivered as a finger ran up her back, and upon turning, she saw Naruto smiling at her, motionless, lying down. All right, it was inconceivable. It felt better than I could have ever imagined. Over time, it seemed as though my senses were functioning. Hinata was silent, still gazing at a black pouch next to the pitcher. Naruto, was that bag added to the lemonade? She pointed to the black bag and asked. Oh, I see, I had discovered it while searching for sugar. We were lucky to have a bag of it. Naruto yawned and drew Hinata closer to him. As she slept, Hinata grinned. She would thank Jiraiya-sama in the morning. A month has passed since then. Naruto was accompanying Hinata today when she went to see the Hokage about a larger apartment. His small shoebox was insufficient, and he grinned because Hinata had told him that she wanted to raise a family with him, as well as to find out what was making Hinata sick so frequently. Naturally, he was instructed to wait outside the office because a week ago, when he had asked how the waist of Hyuga jeans was, he had nearly killed Hiyashi a second time. When he had asked how it was going, Jiraiya and Tsunade had barely stopped him from beating Hiyashi to within an inch of his life. Now, he was leaning against the wall, waiting for them to finish, when he saw a familiar face coming up the stairs. He said, "Identify yourself." The young girl's white eyes glared at Naruto. Hanabi Hyuga. Hanabi refused to back down as Naruto gave the girl a scowl. He snarled, "What do you want? To see my sister and her knuckle-headed boyfriend?" "You mean a knucklehead?" He said this while using one arm to lift Hanabi into the air and using his free hand to tickle her. As Naruto persisted in his assault, Hanabi squirmed and laughed. "Young Hyuga, do you give up, or should I bring the clones in?" With a menacing tone, he said. "No. I give up, Naruto." She let out a gasp in between giggles, and Naruto chuckled as he set her down, bending down to embrace her. Hanabi then gave the man she saw as an older brother the same embrace. "Thank you, big brother," she uttered those words. With a slightly flushed face, Hanabi shifted and took a seat on a nearby bench. After giving Hanabi a quick smile, Naruto took a seat on the bench beside her. he said with a smile and sparkling eyes. "You still can't get past me." She answered, "That's because you're so strong." "Yes, it's accurate. In any case, how are things going?" The only Hyugas who would sit and converse with Naruto and Hinata were Hanabi and Neji, he inquired. "Very little. Dad is still not involved." "You really beat him up," she said worriedly. Naruto didn't feel bad about what he did. He was going to play tickle with Hanabi again when the Hokage's room opened, and he saw that something wonderful had happened when Hinata and Tsunade emerged, Tsunade grinning and blushing. "Will you guys explain what transpired, or do I need to beat you the same way I beat Hanabi?" "You baka, if you tried that on me, I'd knock you into next week, and that's not a good idea, in my opinion, particularly given her present state of health." When Tsunade pointed to Hinata's stomach, he initially believed she was referring to having the stomach flu, but then he saw the small bulge there, and everything fell into place. "You're expecting a child?" As he leapt into the air, he yelled, making the three women laugh. "I am at a loss for words. We really need that larger apartment sooner rather than later, I suppose." Tsunade heard a voice he recognized as he laughed. "Congratulations, kid. It appears that some of my suggestions were heeded. Only because our drinks contained that stuff that pervy sage put in them. See, you still need me. At least some of the advice was taken. Furball, you must have me in your dreams in order to survive. You baka, you would have already been dead if I hadn't been here, and you needed me to survive. You son of a, please stop. Isn't it possible for us to be friends?" "Well, no, that was really painful, you bastard. I hope your child receives its mother's brains rather than the rocks you call brains. I know, what a simpleton." "Oh, Fluffy, it's on. What the fuck do you think I look, Fluffy, you colorblind idiot?" "Hey, color looks fine to me. Is that really the dumbest thing ever? Then why in the world do you wear orange?" "Hey, you mangy fox, I like orange, leave me alone. Please, your foolishness has wounded me. I will never again attempt to think as slowly as you do. I was on the verge of going backwards." "I'm not slow, you jerk." She was at the Ninja Academy today, helping out with some of the basics, like chakra control, until Sakura, who was now teaching at the academy, told her to go home after a while. Hinata thanked her and walked to Ruka's classroom to check if Naruto had finished helping out. Hinata was happy. She had the life she had dreamed of. She had Naruto and was going to be a mother to his child. The thought made Hinata's heart melt. After receiving a lot of applause, Naruto stood in front of the class and demonstrated a few basic jutsus, such as the replacement technique and the doppelganger. Ruka then asked Naruto to stay with his students while he ran an errand, which is when he was inundated with questions. "Sensei Naruto, are you really a Class A ninja according to the bingo book?" a little girl with brown hair inquired. Naruto laughed. "Yes, how did you find out?" When the little girl responded, she flushed. "My dad, I believe you are acquainted with him." "Really? Who is he?" "Curious," he asked. She said, "Shikamaru Nara." "Your father is Shikamaru? It's wonderful to see that he has overcome his indolence. Are you Temari's daughter as well?" Tentatively, he asked. "Yes, Sensei." A young man with green eyes and a bowl haircut thrust another hand into the hand. "Sensei Naruto, during your journey with Jiraiya-sama, what did you discover?" "Lee's child." The young boy gave a nod. He would need to inquire about her son's skills from Sakura. A number of students lowered their hands and said, "Well, this last trip, I didn't learn any new jutsu, but I did learn to play an instrument. It's quite enjoyable," he concluded. "Sensei, you can play?" "Yes, do you want to hear?" When the students cheered, Naruto called forth a shadow clone, vanished in a flash of yellow, and reappeared moments later with a guitar in his hand. The clone rose in a puff of smoke as Naruto took a seat at the desk and started to tune the instrument. He hesitated, deciding what to play, and then it struck him. He strummed the strings with a bagan and started playing a simple tune, which the kids enjoyed. He believed he was finished, but Hanabi interrupted. "Could you sing for us, Naruto?" He started as he gazed at her. Her eyes, which were similar to those of her sisters, met his. He thought, "Damn those eyes, all right, I'll perform a song I worked on during the most recent trip for you all." The kids shifted from behind their desks to as close to him as they could on the ground, and he started to play a slow song. Before starting to sing, he was unaware that Sakura, Hinata, and Iruka were standing in the doorway, enthralled with Naruto. Unbelieving that this was him, Hinata played and sang the song, his voice softly elaborating. He sounded amazing, and the song was lovely. Sakura and Iruka couldn't believe the ninja standing in front of them. Where did he learn to sing like that? As he went on, Hinata wrung a tiny tear from her eye and felt her heart sing along with him. As the man played, the kids started to move in time with the music. Some of them were just grinning, while others had their eyes closed. Hinata was a little sad, wondering if he had written the song for Sakura or for someone else. Unaware that Hinata, Iruka, and Sakura had joined the students on the floor, all of them staring at the most unpredictable ninja ever, Naruto kept playing with his eyes closed. With a smile on his face, Naruto opened his eyes and let the final note play out. He was shocked and embarrassed to see Hinata, Iruka, and Sakura all staring at him with smiles on their faces, while the children cheered and began approaching him to ask him to teach them how to play. Before they could move, Hinata ran over and embraced him, and some of the kids started to giggle, while others, mostly girls, were in awe as Hinata kissed a blushing Naruto. Hanabi hurried up and gave them both a hug, and after a few minutes, they split up. Naruto. Sakura said in confusion, "I had no idea you could sing." "Yes, and for whom was that song composed?" "It was quite good," Iruka said. "Well, Hinata-chan is the one I wrote it for," he replied sheepishly. "I was going to ask her out before we left on our last mission," and then he remembered. "Oh, sensei. You know what? I will soon become a father." "What?" Sakura, Hanabi, and Iruka yelled, completely oblivious to the nearby kids. "That's fantastic. Best wishes to you both," Iruka and Sakura said. Following several minutes of applause from Iruka's class and everyone else in the building, Naruto and Hinata departed, contentedly making their way home. While he was walking to his new apartment after meeting with the Hokage, Naruto had been told that the Hyugas would not try to harm Hinata, but Tsunade still wanted him close to Hinata, especially now that his child was due soon. She had a feeling that Hiyashi would do something soon, so that he felt his clan wouldn't be shamed. Naruto hoped she was wrong. The villagers all smiled at the expecting father, shouting hellos and other uplifting things. As he was walking home, he saw a large group of shinobi gathered near his house. At first, he assumed it was a baby shower or something, but then an explosion broke out among the crowd, and Naruto, fearing for Hinata, ran toward the crowd. He was shocked to see that one of the groups was the Hyugas, minus Neji and Hanabi, fighting his friends, Kakashi-sensei, Iruka-sensei, and Jiraiya as they were fighting each other. With a kunai knife drawn, Naruto charged into the crowd. "The demon is here. Take it out. The Hyuga name has been tarnished by it. He'll pass away with his slutty girlfriend and unborn child." They intended to kill Naruto, his child, and Hinata because he was becoming so enraged by these yells that he was beginning to lose himself. "You jerks are all dead. Oh no." Using a well-known cross sign, Naruto called forth more than 100 clones, outnumbering the Hyuga clan members 2-1. The battle began as a Hyuga lunged for Naruto's heart, but Naruto snarled as he ducked the Hyuga's hand and brought his drawn kunai down into the back of the man's neck, severing his spinal cord and instantly killing him. 10 Hyugas, having defeated his clones, suddenly materialized in front of him, and as they raised their fists to attack, a massive toad's hand fell upon them. Naruto looked up to see Gamabunta looming over the battlefield. As Kakashi used his Chidori on his opponent, a ball of electricity on a hand flew past, and Naruto nodded his gratitude to the pervy sage and went on. "Naruto, hurry. Inside is Hiyashi Lee, Sakura, and Neji are standing up for Hinata." "Old man, where else would I go? A stand selling ramen?" Kakashi smiled under his mask, still fighting, while Naruto yelled over his shoulder as an incredibly large choji swung at his now smaller opponents. Hearing the sounds of battle, Naruto dashed to his front door and arrived just in time to kick Hiyashi in the side of the head as he aimed a deadly blow at a wounded Lee. "Naruto, you're welcome here. Everybody else is down. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to endure much longer." "Lee Hinata, where are you?" He gestured over his shoulder, and Naruto followed it until his gaze settled on Hinata. "She is unconscious over there. Hiyashi was not going to escape this house alive," Naruto realized as the right side of her face swelled and blood poured from her mouth to her chin. "Hiyashi." He let out a roar. "Demon brat." With his hand coiled back, Hiyashi was running at Naruto. Ready to strike, Naruto dodged the blow and raised his knee, and Hiyashi dodged the blow and brought in his own shot. Naruto flipped out of the way, landing a few feet away. Furiously, he coiled up his hand and struck Hiyashi with a bone-shaking blow. But why didn't Hiyashi use rotation? "What a brat. You'll be held accountable." Wiping blood from his mouth, he said. "I see Neji and Hinata closed your chakra points. You don't have a chance." Hiyashi jumped at the person who had destroyed his family and screamed in anger and hatred. Naruto, at least, believed he was the intended victim, but Hiyashi was pursuing his own daughter and his unborn grandchild. Hiyashi thought he had finally succeeded when he swung his kunai down, but a furious Naruto blocked it. With his whisker marks lengthening and his pupils tuning fox-like, he said, "You shouldn't have done that. Now, you die." As Naruto started to gather chakra for his right hand, Hiyashi watched in horror. The chakra shrank into a dense, luminous ball of energy. Naruto plunged the Rasengan into Hiyashi Hyuga's face. Relishing the fear on this evil, emotionless man's face, he saw Hiyashi's brain compress as his entire head started to spin. The Hyuga leader's head exploded out of nowhere, and his body spun through a nearby wall. This fight was over. Hearing cries of agony and fear, along with the distinct sound of Granny Tsunade, Naruto staggered towards Hinata. All Hyugas will stand down and return to your compound. You have attacked fellow shinobi and will be punished if you do not comply. I will kill each and every one of you for treason. Her voice was wrathful. After packing up their dead and injured, the Hyugas cursed Naruto and left for their compound. Naru-kun. Tears started to fall as Naruto gazed down at Hinata. He was glad she was still here. He gave her a firm embrace. They split up after a short while when medical nin came in and gathered Lee, Sakura, and Neji due to the damage they sustained. Those three would need to stay in the hospital for a few days. Naruto refused to leave when the medical nin tried to persuade him to. He declared, "I'm not wounded." Pointing to the blood on his right arm, the irate shinobi shot back, "Then whose blood is this?" He said, "Hiyashi Hyuga's." Leaning back, the medical nin examined Hinata, but before he could start, Hinata took Naruto's hand and gave him a startled, terrified look. Fearing that she or the infant was harmed, he exclaimed, "Hinata, what's wrong?" Still in shock, she said, it's time. She is referring to Baka, the child. The moment has come for it to arrive. Oh no. How should I proceed? To begin with, stop worrying. Second, take her to the medical facility. Correct. Many thanks, Fox. Without another thought, Naruto grabbed Hinata and ran as fast as he could to the hospital. 6 hours later, Naruto returned his hand. Yes, it was crushed, but it was still back. He grinned and glanced at Hinata, who was staring at their newborn son with a flushed face. She grinned as she watched Naruto approach the two most significant individuals in his life. Hinata's hair was on his son. He had stunning bluish-white eyes. He bore a striking resemblance to Naruto at birth. The new parents exchanged a smile. "I'm sorry about your hand, Naru-kun." I'll be alright. You were in more pain than I was," he replied. Tsunade questioned, "Then why were you screaming louder than her?" Deep in thought, Naruto's voice trailed off, "Whatever. Anyway, we need a name." Hinata said, "How about Minato?" While kissing his daughter and son, Naruto remarked, Minato Uzumaki. Perfect." The battle between Sasuke and Naruto took place 10 years ago. Sasuke felt bad about what he had done after he left. Rewind with the deadly blade sticking out of her lower back, Hinata stood erect in front of him. Hinata gave Sasuke a glare that was filled with hatred and murderous intent. "If you try to harm my Naruto-kun, I will kill you." Sasuke growled and yanked his blade back, splattering blood everywhere. Foolish girl. Final flashback. The news that Hinata had survived pleased him now. However, he was going back to his village to make amends with everyone. In addition, after killing his brother and his partner, he needed a new objective. As he got closer to the Leaf Village's north gates, Sasuke was by himself. He stopped on his way home and had his hair cut to the length it was when he left, so he knew he would look familiar. Additionally, he dressed in black, just like he had when he left. The fact that the two guards raised red flags and dropped into a fighting stance did not surprise him. Sasuke Uchiha. Halt. The fact that he had complied at all startled both guards. When he looked at them, they gulped. "Relax, I'm here to return for good." He was shocked when they instructed him to report immediately to the Hokage's tower. Even though he had anticipated their suspicion, he was anticipated. Sasuke made the decision to stroll around the village and observe everything. Not much had changed until a young genin with dark blue hair bumped into his leg. Shock ran through Sasuke's body as he looked to see who had crashed into him. Naruto appeared to be there. A Naruto with dark hair. There were variations. The boy he was staring at had bluish-white eyes like Neji's and no whisker marks. Additionally, this child was smart enough to avoid wearing bright orange, though it had Hinata's clothing. His hoodie resembled Naruto's. "Since I left, what the devil has happened?" he pondered. "Ouch. Geez, mister. Watch where you're walking, Minato Uzumaki," came a voice. He called back, "Aw crap, I'm right here, Mom." When Sasuke turned around, she saw a stunning woman with dark hair sprinting up the street after her son. As her son flushed, the young mother gave him a hug. "Mom, please. Not in public. What if one of the guys see this? They'll never let me live it down," he sighed. She reprimanded, "Then don't run off like that." The young lady got to her feet and grinned as she faced Sasuke. "I'm sorry for my son." The woman's expression changed to one of shock. As she put it, "Sasuke." Abruptly, he recognized the woman. "Hinata." he exclaimed. Startled, the two shinobi stood motionless, observing each other's appearance. Hinata ragged herself after a moment. Sasuke, come with me. The Hokage made it clear that when you return, you're to report to the tower. Still in disbelief, Sasuke nodded. Minato tagged along with his mother as they walked to the tower, and he fell into step with her. The three went into the Hokage's tower and out of the Hokage's room. After a few minutes and a number of shocked looks, Sasuke made the decision to end this. All he could do was hope the Hokage would allow him to demonstrate his sincerity. He said, a little alarmed, Sasuke Uchiha, returning to The Leaf Village. About time you got back. I missed that CHCK and butt haircut of yours. When a smiling blonde turned his chair to face Sasuke, he was unable to conceal his surprise. Naruto. With a perplexed expression on his face, he glanced at Hinata and the young boy who was staring from his father to Sasuke. Yep, I see you met my wife and son. He said, who's this guy, Dad? Naruto told his son, this is Sasuke Uchiha, one of my oldest and best friends. Minato said, a Sharingan warrior? Yup, was Naruto's response. Naruto, at least he's smarter than you were then, Sasuke thought. Now, come give your dad a hug, then go finish your training. Minato rushed to his dad and embraced him. Minato let go of his father and looked at Sasuke. If Dad lets you explore the village, Aunt Sakura and I will be at the training grounds. After running out the door, the young Uzumaki disappeared from view. Nice kid, much friendlier than you. Well, he does have some of my traits, so don't think he's a pushover, warned Naruto. Sasuke said, you made Hokage, congratulations. Thank you. Now, enough about me, let's discuss what to do about you. Naruto got up and approached his longtime friend. The council said that they would ant you executed for treason. This was what Sasuke had feared. However, Naruto went on. However, I believed that when you would return to the village, you'd be back for good, so it was decided 3 years ago that if you returned, you'd be confined to the village for 6 months. You would not be given missions for a full year and you have to go through a refresher course at the academy for 2 months. Naruto folded his arms and continued to observe his companion. Sound fair? Sasuke gave him a smile, a genuine smile, not a smirk. Yeah, sounds fair. Naruto gave him a smile. He began, before you go. But then his office door opened and 2 blonde girls scurried into the room, followed closely by Kakashi. They snickered, Daddy, help, he's a monster. As Kakashi followed the twins, who were 4 years old after running behind their father, both girls looked around his legs. Naruto chuckled. Hinata had to keep her mouth shut to avoid laughing aloud. Naruto pivoted and knelt before his daughters, who shared his eyes. Daddy's busy right now, go ask Grandma Tsunade to help, I'm sure she'd protect you. He was grinning. There was a hey behind him. After giving him a neck hug and leaving the room, both girls said, okay. Bye Daddy. Kakashi looked scared. Hey Naruto. You trying to get me killed? No, I knew it'd keep you here long enough for me to put you in charge of Sasuke. Kakashi looked around and said, Sasuke? Sasuke was standing in the corner, grinning at Kakashi. Sasuke joked, from elite Junin to babysitter, quite a resume. Kakashi replied, yes, well, they are my godchildren, so you're back. Merely. Sasuke nodded his head. Naruto took a seat behind his desk after moving back. He jabbed a thumb over his shoulder, pointing out the window, and said, as much fun as this is, I have a lot to do. Sasuke, you'll be joining us for dinner in the meantime. Kakashi, take Sasuke to his house, but make sure he has a chance to see everyone out there. You gotta come on, Sasuke. The two went toward the door together. At the entrance, Sasuke halted. He said, thank you, Naruto. Hey, let's just say you owe me one. Sasuke then walked out of his office and went home. Naruto smiled at Hinata, who was teasing him while she sat on his lap. She snapped, you sure you'll stay? Yeah, things always work out for the village when I'm in charge. He replied. That's my number one most unpredictable ninja. As they shared a kiss, he said, that's my wife. The Leaf Village's son had said everything was in its proper place.